Begin today at the Mishnah at the beginning of Daf Yud Zayin Amud Aleph. Zog the Heilige Mishnah. Baloi lichtoives ha-Megillah. The Kohen comes to write the Megillah, which is part of the parsha of the Sotah that's placed into the water and will be erased there in the water. Me'ezeh makom u'kaisef. From which place in the pasuk does the Kohen write? So the Mishnah says mi'im. The vav is taken out. In the pasuk it says mi'im lo yishachav ish v'goymer. Where the pasuk begins to say, where the Kohen tells the Isha, if the man did not lie with you. And there the pasuk actually continues to say in the positive, that then the water will not affect her. So the point here is, as we'll see from the Gemara, that even though this is something positive, and the point here that the Kohen is writing is, the pasuk says, because of his ha'olais, he's writing the curses in this scroll that's placed into the water. But even this, which seems to be a bracha, but you can understand from the positive, from the bracha, the negative, that if she did have a relation with this man, what will happen to her? If you want to really understand this Mishnah properly, the psukim, you should look it up in Chumash, or in this Gemara you have it here quoted on the side in Parshas Nasai, in Kapitel Hey, from Pasuk Yutes to Pasuk Chav Beis, so you'll have an understanding of what the Gemara is talking about. So again, you start writing in the scroll from the pasuk that's in the middle of Pasuk Yutes, where it says Ve'im loy or im loy shachavish. And then you write also the next pasuk where it says Va'at kisatis taches isheich. And if you did have a relationship with this man, so then the pasuk there goes on to say what will occur to her. And ve'ena kaisev v'hishbia kayin es isha. Then in the next pasuk where it says that the kayin has the woman take this oath about what will happen to her, that part he doesn't write, because that's just a command to the kayin of what to do with the woman. And the Kaiser, but he does write from the part of the pasuk where it says Yitin Hashem loisach la'ala l'shvu, Hashem will curse you with this shvu here, which is the actual curse that will occur to her. Now Ve'ena Kaiser, he does not write the conclusion of the next pasuk where it says Va'amra Isha Amen Amen, where she accepts this shvu that the kain has to swear. Or she says Amen for this shvu here. That's not part of the scroll, that's not part of the curse itself, which is written in the scroll. So basically, as you see here, according to the Tanakama, which the Gemara will say is Rab Meir, you only write the curses and also the bracha, that you understand the curse from it, but not a tzivoy, a command, or the acceptance of the woman, so you skip that out. Rabbi Yossi says, Lehoya mafsik. He writes from where the Tanakama says you begin from Im Shachavish and you write all the way till the end. You do not leave out the tzivui that the kain has, v'hishbia, also not the Kabbalah that the woman accepts when she says Amen, Amen. That's also written as well. Rabbi Yossi, sorry, just read that. Rabbi Yehuda says, Kol atzmoi eina kaisev ela yiten Hashem oisach la'ala u'l'shvua v'gaymer. All the kain writes is this part of the pasuk where it speaks about the actual curse that Hashem will give you to a curse, that the water will enter into your belly. And he doesn't write the conclusion of that pasuk, Amen, Amen. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, you write the least. You only write the actual curse that the pasuk says. So those are the three opinions over here in the Mishnah, the Tanakame, Rabbi Yossi, and Rabbi Yehuda, what's written in the scroll that's placed into the water that the woman drinks. So what is the argument here based on? Says the Gemara, they're arguing what it says in the next pasuk following these psukim that the Gemara quoted here, or the Mishnah said. So there the pasuk says, that the Kohen will write these following curses into this scroll. So what do we learn out from what it says, es ha'olei sa'ela? Rav Meir's opinion is as follows. Olois, when it says write the curses, that's olis mamish. Literally, the curse is the part of the pasuk where it says what the water will do to her. It'll cause her belly to burst and so on. Then, the fact that it says ha'alois, adding a hey, lerabais, klolis abais machmas brachos. So that adds that the Kohen also writes the pasuk which speaks about if she did not have a relationship with a man, and the pasuk says a bracha, but from the bracha we understand the curse as well. So that's part of the curses. That's what the hey adds. Then, when the pasuk says Eila is saying these, that's already an exclusion. Lumute klalish of the Mishnah Torah. The pasuk is telling me here to write curses. You don't have to write the curses that are mentioned in Chumash Dvarim and Parshas Kisavai. And the exclusion has another detail because it says ha'ela, these, and it says the added hey. Lumute tzavais v'kabbalis amen. that excludes that you don't write that part of the pasuk which is commanding the kohen to make the woman swear, and also the part of the pasuk where she accepts when she says Amen. That's skipped as well. Rabbi Yosi that argues with the Tanakama, and he says you don't skip the tzavayis in the Kabbalahs, you write it all. Kulak the Kamrit. He darshans this pasuk of Es ha'olah sa'ela exactly like Rab Meir, but he darshans from the word Es l'ravais tzavayis v'Kabbalahs. The word Es is an extra word, and you learn from there that even the part where the kohen is commanded to have a swear and her accepting the klala, that's also written. But Rab Meir that disagrees with this, Esim loy dorish. He does not darshan the Es in the Torah. It's part of the style of the way the Torah writes, and the Es is not darshaned. But Rabbi Yehuda that says that you write much less. You just write the actual curses that the pasuk says. Kulu b'miyuti dorish lehu. So he darshans all the different expressions that the Torah says here, that it's all exclusions. Alois means alois mamish. When the Torah says you should write curses, that would mean literally curses, which would actually include the curses, but also the blessings that you understand curses from it. But then it says ha'alois. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, the hey here is actually an exclusion. Lum ute klolis abayis machmas brachis. So that excludes the klolis that is understood from the brachis that the pasuk says. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yehuda, you don't write that first pasuk ve'im loy shachavish, because that's really a bracha. Then when it says eile, also an exclusion. Lemuute klolish of Mishnah Torah. That excludes the curses that are mentioned in Mishnah Torah, as mentioned before in Parshas Kisavai. Sorry. Ha eile, another exclusion that added hey there. Lemuti tzavayis v'kabbalas, to exclude the tzavayis and kabbalas like we had before, according to Rab Meir and Rab Yosi, that's not written as well. So the Gemara asks on Rab Meir's opinion. But Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir, Maishno, what's the difference? Hi, hey, when the Torah said always, and then it added a hey, ha always. So when it comes to that hey, the marbi hey, that Rab Meir says that the hey is actually coming to add even more. That you write not only the actual klala, but you also write the bracha, which shows you a klala. Maishna hai hey, and why when it comes to the other hey, when it says not only eila, but it says ha eila, the moed hey, that hey is an exclusion. Answers the Gemara, hey, the gabe deribuye, the hey that's written in the word of alois, which is coming to add and say what you do include. So in the context of the word, it's understood that the hey is coming to add something more. Hey, the gabe de miyuta. But on the other hand, the hey that's written in the word eila, the word eila is an exclusionary word, only this. So the hey there in that context is to exclude even more. Frag the Gemara now more generally on the opinion of Rab Meir. Rab Meir says you include the brachas because from the brachas you can understand the opposite, the curses. How could that be? But Rab Meir, we know that Rab Meir his opinion is he does not hold of this idea that miklalav atashemei that from a negative you could deduce a positive, or the same vice versa. From a positive you could understand a negative. Where does Rab Meir say this? So Rab Meir says this regarding the halacha of a t'nai, when a person makes a condition and a kedushin or in a sale. So you have to spell out a t'nai kafel. You have to spell out that it will take effect in these conditions, and you also have to spell out, but if those conditions are not met, it will not take effect. And it's not self-understood if you don't spell it out. So the question is, how can we say here, according to Rab Meir, that you write the pasuk in lo yishach avish, which is a pasuk that's a bracha, because you can understand the negative, but Rab Meir says we don't deduce a negative from the positive. Amar Rab Tanchum, so Rab Tanchum answers, you're right, but the pasuk, it's actually read he noki, but it's read, or it's written rather, without a yud after the hey, and therefore could be read ha noki ksiv, and as Rashi says, what the Gemara means is, you read it as chanoki, which means that in this pasuk is hinted a curse, that she will be strangled if she did have a relation with this man. So it's not just deducing from the bracha, but in the pasuk itself, there's a curse that's hinted here. And that's why, according to Rab Meir, it's written in the scroll. Darish Rabbi Kiva darshan, ish v'isha, a husband and wife, zachu, if they merit, shchina b'neya, the shchina dwells amongst them. Loi zachu, if they do not merit, eish oichlasan, a fire will consume them. And now, the hint for this is because if you take the yud and the hey from the ish and the isha, which is the shchina that is amongst them, if you remove the yud and the hey from the ish and the isha, so then what do you have? You have eish and eish, fire, and therefore they get consumed. Omar Rava says, with the isha, the fire that consumes the woman, adifim with the ish. is stronger and more harmful than the one by the man. What's the reason? Because hay mitzaref, v'hay loy mitzaref. Because by the woman, the eish, the two letters of aleph shin that makes eish, are actually together. The hay is after. The yud by the ish is in between the aleph and the shin, so the fire is separated with that yud in between, so it's not as strong. Omar Rava said, why does the Torah say hava ofel Sotah, to bring earth to place into the water of the Sotah? The message here is as follows: Zachsa, if she'll merit, Yitzam Imenu ben Kavram Avinu. She'll have a son that will be a tzaddik like Avram Avinu. T'chsiv Bey, regarding whom it says, Afar ve'efer, that he said, I'm merely like dust and ashes. But Loi Zachsa, she does not merit, and she did do an Aveda, Tachsay la'afra, she will go back and return to dust. Darish Rava Darshan, B'schar Shama Avram Avinu. As a reward for this that Avram said, Va'anoichi Afar ve'efer, that I am merely dust and ashes, Zochu Bonov, his children merited Lebeis mitzvahs, to two mitzvahs which are Efer Para va'afar Sotah, the ashes that are used for the Para Duma and the earth that's used by the Sotah. Isn't there a third mitzvah, which is the earth that's used to cover the blood by a shchita, the mitzvah of Kisi Adam? Answers the Gemara, that's not included because Hasam Hechsher mitzvah. Yes, there is a fulfillment of a mitzvah, but Hana Aleke. It's not a mitzvah that gives a person a specific Hana. Even if you don't do the Kisi Adam, the meat that was shechted is allowed to be eaten. Whereas over here, when it comes to the Para Duma, the ashes is Matayr the person. There's a benefit. And the same with the Afar of the Sotah, which is Matayr the Isha, or it lets us know what's going on over here. There's a sikha from the Rebbe Barichas Gedela about this piece of Gemara here, Chelik Chofei, in Parshas Lech Lecha, where the Rebbe there basically explains what's the connection of this that Avram Avinu said, Vanechi Afa ve'efer, to specifically these two mitzvahs. The point there is, Vanechi Afa ve'efer expresses a tremendous level of bittul, that Avram Avinu was like dust and ashes. And this is seen by the unique way Avram Avinu did his mitzvah of Gemilas Chasadim, that he invited everybody and anybody, including the Arabs, into his tent because of his absolute bittul. And that's seen dafka in these two mitzvahs. By the mitzvah of Para Duma, the Kayin that prepares the Para Duma is sacrificing his own purity for the purity of the Siyid, because he becomes Tameh when he prepares the Para Duma. That's the halacha. So he's ready to sacrifice himself for the sake of another. The same by the Afar Sotah, you see that Hashem says, erase my name to bring the shalom, the peace between husband and wife. Again, sacrificing something holy for the sake of the shalom for another yid. So therefore, Avraham Avinu, that had this tremendous bittul, has these two mitzvahs that express this idea of absolute bittul. As a reward for this that Avraham said, Avraham Avinu refused to accept even a thread or even a shoelace. He didn't want to take what's not his. Zachul banav lebeis mitzvahs, his children merited the two mitzvahs, chut shel tcheles, the thread of tcheles from the tzitzis, or the tzur shel tefillin, and the strap of the tefillin. So now, similar to before, these are two mitzvahs that bring Yidden a certain benefit that you can see. So bishleim the tzur shel tefillin, it's understood when it comes to the straps of the tefillin. The pasuk says, "V'roch alam yaretz kishem Hashem nikra alecha," that the nations of the earth will see that the name of God is upon you. Where is this and when is this? Elu tefillin sheberash. This refers to the tefillin on the person's head. The Rebbe is known, kochtach, this so many times regarding the mitzvah tefillin, that putting on the tefillin will bring the safety and security for Yidden then by the 6-day war in Eretz Yisrael and all over the world. There's a diik though in the lashon of the Gemara, tefillin shebir roish, that it's not just enough to have the tefillin on top of your head, but the Gemara is also hinting to the tefillin in the head, that a person should have the awareness of the shibud hamayach v'alev when he puts on the tefillin. So that's the tefillin. But when it comes to the threads or the strings of the tzitzis, mahi, what's the significance, what's the benefit, the meaning of this mitzvah that Eden was zeichet to? Says the Gemara de Tanya, we learned in the Braise, Rav Meir said about the threads, specifically the blue, the tcheles, threads of the tzitzis. What's the difference between the tcheles and all other colors? Because tcheles has the same color as the sea. The yam, the color of the sea is the same as the sky. Urikia, and the color of the sky is similar to the color of, so to speak, Beruchnias, spiritually speaking, the color of Hashem's holy throne. Shenemaz, we can see in the pasuk by Matan Torah or after Matan Torah, it says, "Vayiru es Elokei Yisrael v'tachas raglov kemaisa livnas asapir uketzam hashamayim l'toyer." So it describes below Hashem's legs. This is all, of course, Beruchnias, speaking about livnas hasapir, and this is related to the etzam hashamayim l'toyer, the purity, the beautiful color of the sky. Uksiv, and describing the kisei hakavod itself, it also uses the same expression, Kemara Evan Saper Demus Kisei, that Hashem's holy throne is also with the same appearance of Evan Saper, so therefore the sky is, so to speak, the same color spiritually as the kisei hakavod itself. And that's what the tefillin, or rather the strings of the tzitzis, reminds a yid of. Sotah the Heilige Mishnah regarding writing the scroll, the Megillah, that's the sefer that's going to be placed into the water. Eine kaisev, this may not be written loyal luach, not on a wooden tablet, loyal on a yard, not just on paper, which is made from, well, today it's made from trees, or Rashi says grasses in those times, loyal a diftere, and not on a parchment that's not fully properly worked out to be smooth, el ala Megillah, but rather on a proper scroll and a proper parchment which is fully smooth. Shenamar, as understood, the pasuk says, "Basefer," should be written on a proper sefer. Ve'ein kaisev, this is not written loy bekumos, v'loy bekankantom, v'loy b'chol davar sheroishim, not with these various types of inks that could be black or other things that make a mark that will not get erased in the water. Ela b'dyoy, rather with ink that will get erased. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, that the point here is umacha, that it will be erased in the water, which is ksav sheyuchal sheyachal, that is lihimachis, that could be erased in the water. Amar Rava said additional halachas regarding the writing of the Megillah of the Sotah. Megillah Sotah shekasva balayla. This Megillah that was written in the night, psula, is possible. My time, asya teira, because we learn out Gzeira Shava from the term teira that it says here, and what it says by a din teira, by a court case. Ksiv hacha. Here the pasuk says va'asala kayin es kol hateira azais. The kayin should do for her this teira. Ksiv hasam, and by a court case it says, Al pi atayra shar yerucha vala mishpat. So ma mishpat bayayim, just like a court case of a money matter, this is during the day. Af Megillah Sotah, so too the writing of the Megillah of the Sotah is also bayayim, by day. Another halacha kosva lemafreya, the Megillah of the Sotah that was written out of order. You started from the back, working your way up in the pasuk. Psula, it's also pasal. The chsiv kosva v'sa'olei sa'ela, like this, the way it's written in the pasuk, that it should be in the order. The Kidiksiva, like it's written in the pasuk. Kasva koydem shetakabel aleh shvua. He wrote this Megillah before he had the woman listen to the shvua that the kohen says to her, and she accepts it. Psula, it's also possible. Shenava, the pasuk says v'hishbiya. First, the kohen has her accept the shvua, v'achakach, and only afterwards v'kasav. Only then is it written. Kasva igeres, if it was written just as a letter, what this means is without the sirtut, those are the marks or the scratches that you have in a Sefer Torah below each line, that it should be written straight. It's also psul, it's also possible. Basefer Amanachmana, the Torah says basefer, which means it has to be in a proper sefer, just like a Sefer Torah. Okay, so just like the Rashi here says, like Halacha L'Moshe Messina regarding the Svarim, Sefer Torah, Mezuzahs, they need sirtut. Big machlekes Rishonim here about this subject. You have a long Tosfos here that discusses whether a Sefer Torah needs sirtut or not, or maybe it's only a mezuzah. If you look in our Sefer Torahs, you'll see that there's a sirtut there, but not necessarily is it minat Torah. Could be it's only midrabanan, and not necessarily do you need sirtut above the line and below the line, and not necessarily do you need sirtut on every line, maybe only on the top line. There's various different details about this, and there's a difference between the tefillin, the Sefer Torah, and the mezuzah. And here the Gemara says this applies to the Megillah of the Sotah as well. Tosfos says a very big arichas about this. Continuing on the next Talmud, Kasva al Shnei Dafin, he wrote the Megillah for the Sotah on two different columns, like a Sefer Torah, that are written, or two different columns, or actually two different Dafin, two different parts of a parchment. So psula, that's also possible. Sefer Echad Amanachmana, the Torah says one Sefer. Not two or three pieces of parchment together. If he writes a letter, then he puts that into the water, and it gets erased, and then he takes it out, he writes another letter, and like this. He only writes one letter at a time and erases it and takes it out of the water. Maybe he's doing it, he doesn't want to erase the whole name of Hashem all at once. He's writing just one letter at a time and erasing it. Psula, it's also possible. The pasuk says, "Va'asala hakayin as kol haTorah hazais." So you have to write kol haTorah, the whole thing together at once, and erase it in the water.